Hey everybody, it's Party Elite here with another episode of Total Breakdown. This is an excellent battle between the Lizardmen of the Hulk brother and the Dark Elves of Mamelox. I apologize if I mispronounce that name. We begin, as always, with a conversation about composition and deployment. Both sides keeping things relatively simple here. Let's start with the Lizardmen. You can see we have Kroq-Gar in charge atop Grimlock alongside a Skink Chief and a Skink Priest of Heavens, both in the air. The front line consists of these Skink cohorts with their javelins, and right behind them 3 units of Kroq-Gar, while on either flank we have the Cold One Spear Riders, not only able to push forward with flanking maneuvers of their own, but also able to shut down any Dark Elf flanking maneuvers as they are anti-large and armor-piercing. And then finally, we do have this Bastiladon with a solar engine atop its back, able to get damage done from the get-go and also charge in if necessary. Now the Dark Elves are very clearly prepared for a large enemy army, and I'm not talking in terms of numbers. So we have Malekith atop his Black Dragon in charge here, with these 4 units of Dread Spears up front as the main line, right behind them 3 units of Blackguard of Nagaron, and the only anti-infantry unit, the Blackguard Corsairs, right behind them. 3 units of Dark Shards providing that range support, and we also have the Reaper Bolt Thrower providing range support as an artillery piece, doing a lot of anti-large armor-piercing damage as well. And finally, the Dark Riders back here, perhaps purchased with some spare points, able to push in with some flanking maneuvers, get some rear charges when lines meet, or alternatively, shut down any range support. So, fairly good utility unit on the field there. With all that said and done though, let's take a look at how this all breaks down. Again, the Dark Elves very much prepared for a dino-heavy build. Lots of anti-large there, and you'll see the Kroq-Gar are actually the main line, more or less, for the Lizardmen. So, the Blackguard of Nagaron and the Dread Spears are going to have a bit of a field day in this situation. You'll see the Bastiladon with Solar Engine, though, slowly creeping forward, trying to get some shots off, but the Reaper Bolt Thrower able to get damage done earlier because of its superior range, so firing away at the Bastiladon, trying to get some hurt in, not doing too much right away. I sometimes question the value of the Reaper Bolt Throwers, but nonetheless, getting a little bit of hurt in, a little bit of morale damage in as well, before the Bastiladon is even able to get a first shot off. Meanwhile, you'll see over here Malekith is pushing off to the side, along with these Dark Riders over here, potentially to counter the approach of these Cold One Spear Riders as they get closer and closer, but of course that's not going to be an ideal situation for either of those units. While the Bastiladon with Solar Engine fires away, gets its first shot off, and rather than hitting its intended target of these Blackguard of Nagaron, damages these Dark Shards as well as the Blackguard Corsairs, so not terrible, but not ideal either. Meanwhile, the rest of the Lizardmen army is continuing to push forward, while we also have on the right here these Cold One Spear Riders pushing in for a little flanking maneuver of their own, with the Skink Chief, Skink Priest, and Kroq-Gar pulling forward as the Solar Engine continues to fire, once again flubbing its shot a little bit, but at least damaging some Dread Spears this time around. You'll see as well the Reaper Bolt Thrower continues to get some damage in, firing away at the Bastiladon with Solar Engine, having cut about a fifth of its health off, while Malekith is pushing in to get involved directly as these Dark Shards now opening fire at the Skink cohort with javelins, doing a decent bit of damage with that focus fire, while on the left flank over here you'll see we do have these charges going down, and again, not an ideal situation for these Dark Riders whatsoever. So you'll see in just a moment's time these units are going to clash into each other, and the Cold One Spear Riders, anti-large and armor-piercing, are going to very quickly take care of these Dark Riders. Malekith dives in as well, and while he will be able to provide some support, he does count as a large unit atop the Black Dragon, so the Cold One Spear Riders aren't going to mind that all that much. And you'll see as that left flank, or that left cavalry maneuver, is quickly falling apart for the Dark Elves, we do have the front lines closing the gaps, and you'll see the Kroq-Gar do dive into the Dread Spears, not able to punch through as they do have charge defense against large, so not an ideal engagement on the left flank here as well, not the ideal engagement for these Kroq-Gar as they charge into anti-large units. On the far left, you'll see these Dark Riders have already been taken care of on their way out, while Malekith as well taking a decent bit of damage, along with the fire from the Skink cohort with javelins here as well. The Chill Wind here doing a bit to stop the Skink cohort with javelins, doing a little bit of hurt there, and just dropping them so they can't keep firing, while Kroq-Gar over here you can see pushing in to give chase to Malekith and hopefully shut him down nice and early and get rid of enemy leadership. You'll see meanwhile over here these Kroq-Gar are having a decent time, but if the Blackguard of Nagaron here were to push in, they'd be very quickly shut down, and you'll see on the side over here as well these Cold One Spear Riders not able to dive in just yet, while in the middle here we do have a wonderful cast, an absolute wonderful cast of the Comet of Cassandora, shutting down 3 entire Dark Elf units there that are all very threatening. Meanwhile, Malekith does use his spell to keep his health up. Soul Stealer here, keeping his health up while also causing direct damage on the right flank. Right now, you can see we have the Cold One Spear Riders charging into the rear of these Dark Shards, shutting them down for good, making sure their morale drops right away, and also, of course, causing a decent bit of physical damage as well. Meanwhile, Murderous Prowess does kick in as Malekith dives in as well to try and shut these Kroq-Gar down on the right flank, doing a great bit of hurt there, and and quickly they are dropping in health, though they are having a decent time against the Dark Shards that they're engaged against right now, and now these Skink cohort are forced to push in as well, while these Cold One Spear Riders are coming in from the side, shutting down another unit of Dark Shards. So great use of the cavalry there, maneuvering in, while the Blackguard of Nagaron here just sitting there, looking pretty. They need to be sent in. They are the anti-large armor-piercing core of this Dark Elf army. There's a unit of Cold One Spear Riders right there, and a unit of Kroxigor right here. They need to be sent in to shut all of that down, and you'll see in just a moment's time they do get sent in, but a little too late there. Can't waste time with micromanaging such important units in this engagement. You'll see, meanwhile, Gaze of Malice goes down to shut these Skink cohort units down, while Hand of God goes in to damage Malekith. Does a decent bit of hurt there, alongside some friendly fire as well. The Bastildon with Solar Engine now pushing in to actually get involved in melee, as firing away from the distance is not so possible, being constantly obstructed, while these Skink cohort over here firing into the sides of these Dreadspear. Malekith, meanwhile, in a terrible position here, forced to retreat as Kroq-Gar dove in and did a decent bit of damage, as he is anti-large alongside those Cold One Spear Riders, and now Kroq-Gar turns around and gets a wonderful rear charge into these Dreadspears, tossing them aside, doing a lot of damage to their morale, combined with the fear, the terror, and as well as the fact as a rear charge from a dinosaur will tend to scare you. Meanwhile, the Bastildon with a Solar Engine using Cold-Blooded to stay healthy, keep it alive before it dives into melee. Not a bad call at all. And over here, Malekith uses Soul Stealer once again to keep himself alive. In just a moment's time, you'll see the Kroxigor hit by Soul Stealer, helping Malekith stay in the air, and actually chases the Skink Chief, engaging the Skink Chief to try and shut him down and remove that range support from the field. Gaze of Malice once again going down here, shutting these Skink cohorts down as they're engaging the Dreadspears. Meanwhile, the Kroxigor here completely shattered, do not wish to fight anymore, while the Bastildon with Solar Engine dives into the Blackguard of Nagaron and these Dreadspears. And while it might do okay against the Dreadspear, the Blackguard of Nagaron will have a field day against the Bastildon. Kroq-Gar, meanwhile, looking for opportunities, looking for something to shut down, dives into these Blackguard. They're very low on health, so perhaps able to shut them down, but all of that range fire comes in as well, and you can see how much hurt it does, not only to health, but also to morale. Kroq-Gar is down to about half health, and in a very dangerous situation against some anti-large units, while on the left flank over here, you'll see the Bastildon is dropping pretty quickly as well. Harmonic Convergence does go down to help its melee defense stay up, so it is able to frighten the Dreadspears off, but the Blackguard of Nagaron sticking in there, doing a great deal of damage. Malekith, meanwhile, looking for an opportunity, looking for somewhere to dive in and get involved, trying to stay away from the Skink Chief's range fire as well, and very low on health, so a very precarious situation, while Kroq-Gar as well, now you can see very low on health, uses Swiftness of Itzel to clear some space around him, and is able to run away from that very dangerous situation. Meanwhile, the Dark Shards over here firing away, I would say uselessly, at some Skink cohort, firing into the trees more likely, and as Kroq-Gar pushes in here, Malekith runs away and tries to take to the air, forcing Kroq-Gar to give up on the chase. And meanwhile, another Gaze of Malice shutting this unit of Skink cohort down, just causing a little bit of damage here and there to try and frighten them off as they shut down the Reaper Bolt Thrower. Kroq-Gar once again looking for an opportunity, looking for some place to go and be useful. You can see what's left of the Dark Elf army is quite frightening as Malekith pops the Noxious Breath here, again doing a little bit of hurt to Kroq-Gar as he pops Cold-Blooded to return some of his health, to replenish some of his lost hit points. But again, a very dangerous situation for the Lizardmen here. The units they have left are all anti-large for the most part, alongside those Dark Shards that are able to take care of units like Kroq-Gar very easily, the Skink Chief as well as the Bastildon with Solar Engine. So a dangerous situation for the Lizardmen, and though the Dark Elves are facing the wrong way, they have a pretty powerful army left over. The Bastildon with Solar Engine does turn around to try and get a shot off, do a little bit of hurt before committing to a melee engagement here. You'll see the Blackguard of Nagaron do get hurt fairly significantly as the Dark Shards back there open shots off to try once again shut down Kroq-Gar, both in terms of health and in terms of morale, maybe scare him off the field. And now we have a bit of a Hail Mary push happening here. Kroq-Gar needs to get involved. He wants to cause some damage, but he's doing a head-on charge into a lot of anti-large charge defense against large units. Dives in there, gets completely surrounded, but look at this absolutely gorgeous chain lightning from the Lizardmen, doing a glorious amount of damage. These Blackguard of Nagaron do not stand a chance. These Dreadspears do not stand a chance. Their morale drops, their health drops instantaneously, and Kroq-Gar just having a field day pushing into these Dark Shards, and ultimately with that great Hail Mary move, with Kroq-Gar pushing in and the chain lightning dropping on the clump, you can see a mass shatter as the Dark Elves surrender and leave the field for a Pyrrhic victory for the Lizardmen. Now, the Lizardmen were severely on the back foot in this battle, an army that relies mostly on large units against an army of mostly Dreadspears and Blackguard of Nagaron. As we saw it all unfold, the Dark Elves, despite some mismanagement here and there, came out on top. Well-used magic, near constant use of Gaze of Malice, great use of range support and artillery. But Right at the end, a fantastic Hail Mary move from the Lizardmen completely broke what was left of the Dark Elves, despite them being the ideal counter to what the Lizardmen had left on the field. As always, make sure you subscribe to this channel for more Total War content and keep sending in those battle replays. I do think it's one of the best ways to learn, and it's always nice to see great battles from the community. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you on the battlefield.